Thank God the devs acknowledged absolute difficulty is not particularly punishing. Hopefully they do something about it, along with the rework contested HP system. Absolute should absolutely kick our butts. Alright, so, dude, obviously this is one of those posts where it's like a hot take, essentially. However, they also need to, put themselves on a pedestal to let everyone know that they're better than you. No, okay, seriously though, this is obviously not very helpful. However, the actual title here is the devs did acknowledge that Absolute wasn't very punishing, but I have to disagree. Now, I think it's less about, it's less about how hard I think Absolute is, right? But for the most part, I play with a lot of randoms, right? So for the most part, I think there is kind of a separation here with Absolute. There are players who have hundreds of hours in the game who are, they're basically prepared for any type of situation. And then you have players who are newly Prestige 4, basically just started doing Absolute. And I think how difficult Absolute is, two different ways, two different cases here. Obviously if you're used to Absolute, maybe it doesn't feel very punishing. Maybe. I mean, if you have healing on your class or something, yeah, I doubt it. I doubt that it feels very punishing. Okay, so a different point just popped into my head, but let's finish this one. So the people who aren't very practiced in Absolute, dude, Absolute probably feels very punishing. In fact, when I run into randoms, it definitely feels like the average player is struggling in Absolute. It doesn't really make any sense to say Absolute isn't particularly punishing. Because like for as far as the point of view of this, it's basically through the eyes of somebody who's already doing like solo Absolute, which is also punishing. This is insane. I really have an issue, I guess. I wouldn't really call it an issue. I think the devs are definitely a little bit out of touch when it comes to how they view punishing in this game. 100%. I think when the dev said Absolute isn't particularly punishing, like for whatever reason, I definitely think they are low-key, I definitely think they are implying healing. The amount of healing we have in the game right now allows Absolute to not be particularly punishing. They genuinely want us to fight Terminus enemies with a mortal wound at 30% health. This is absolutely a ridiculous point of contention for Absolute, to be completely honest. There aren't stims in Absolute. You do not get healing. The only way you can actually survive with Absolute, for the most part, is to build into one of the metas. Either your DPS is really good, your burst damage is really good, you either have Icon or Unmatched Zeal, Bonds of Brotherhood, and or some damage reduction, or at the very least, you are just perfect dodging and parrying everything. So, I'm sorry, devs, but these are mechanics you put into the game to allow us to stay in the fight. It's not punishing because we're getting better at the game. It has nothing to do with the systems. Most people I play with on Absolute, in average, are 100% struggling in this game. 100%. I don't understand this point of contention. I don't. I don't. Now, just because I'm not struggling or I'm not, I don't feel like I'm getting punished all the time in Absolute, that doesn't mean it's like not hard. Like the game itself is still, as far as Absolute goes, especially if you're not used to it, Absolute can definitely throw some things at you that aren't very easy to play around. Like, dude, I don't like the devs talking about, oh, Absolute isn't particularly punishing, when we still have things in the game where it's like, you can go for a parry on a Ravener, but you're getting hit by that death beam. Like, brother, we don't even have iframes to, like, save us from getting stun locked and immediately getting hit from 100 to 0. Just from one mistake. That's in the game. That is currently something that can happen in Absolute. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to most players. Like, seriously, most players in Absolute do not go through it flawlessly. And I feel like when it comes to Absolute being particularly punishing, like, I'm genuinely kind of puzzled in my brain. How would you make this any harder? like, dude, to be completely honest, I feel like the devs just want to nerf contested health. They don't even want to make sure that melee contested health is functional. They just want to straight up nerf contested health across the board. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Only because they pointed out that Absolute wasn't particularly punishing. So I'm honestly on the I'm close to crashing out on this subject, I think. Just because I don't think the devs play the game. It's unfortunate. I was kind of like on the fence about this, but devs, show me a video of you playing either Wave 15 of Siege mode, doesn't even need to be hard mode, Wave 15 of Siege mode, or Absolute. Or Absolute. Because I feel like the devs, they're looking at stats. They're not jumping in the game. They're looking at stats. They're looking, oh wow, Absolute's still at a 60% win ratio. Wow, wonder why that is. Guess it's not hard enough. It's like, no, because the people who are currently playing it we mastered it already, in a sense. I won't say mastered, but in a sense, we understand what to expect now. People who are losing runs don't know that the Carnifex appears after the brain part of exfiltration. You know what I mean? Like, there's still areas that people will definitely panic when a Terminus arrives at. That's where the elves come in. But once you expect the Terminus, you start to build for it. I think the devs just need to give some players credit here. Not as much as the top echelon, but the players who are still in Absolute, who are losing and winning every other match. I think those are the players who are a better representation of what the struggle in Absolute is. Now for me, for like FTG, for like anyone who plays this game, like a lot, like genuinely anybody, a lot of you guys who are already Prestige 4 across the board, I feel like we shouldn't really be the guys that they balance the game around. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely have a hard time. Well, no, actually I don't. I genuinely think if they just nerfed contested health regeneration across the board, that's pretty much what they want. Like, to be completely honest. And now, I will reiterate something. I don't want to put words in the devs' mouth at all. I don't want to do that. The devs might not want to nerf contested health across the board. In fact, they said themselves that they want to buff melee contested health and nerf ranged contested health. But I just want to be a little bit honest here. If you're in position for melee more often than not, you are definitely going to get punished for that. Regardless. Regardless. I can't, like, it's a lot easier to stop mid-scope to do a perfect dodge than it is to stop mid-swing to do a perfect dodge for certain attacks. So, yeah, I think this is a dangerous way to look at it, to be completely honest. I don't think the devs were playing the game. I really don't. I think they're looking at stats, and I think that it definitely tells a different story. Most people who are committed to Absolute are, you know, pretty much know how to play. I think they want to make sure that nobody can, like, true solo it or something. I don't know. I felt like this was the strangest thing the devs could have said, was that Absolute at the point of right now is not particularly punishing. I just don't agree. Like, I don't agree, because I don't agree in the sense of like, oh wow, Absolute is still hard for me. Absolute is still pretty difficult. Certain builds, definitely, it's still pretty difficult. But I think it's perfect for where, you know, where veterans are. I think it's perfect for difficulty for veterans to try out new builds and everything like that. They can also do that in Absolute, but you still would need some sort of staple to make sure your build can hold up, like whether it's secure stockpile, unmatched zeal, something like that. Regardless, I see a lot of people struggle in Absolute. I play with average players a lot, and I think the devs are kind of overreacting in a way. I think they want Absolute, for whatever reason, to be like a 30% win ratio, and I'm sorry, but if that was the case, not a lot of people would be even trying it. You know, like, I again, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this one, but I felt like the devs pointing this out was kind of, that was the thing that made them look out of touch, because I see plenty of people still struggling on Absolute. It's just, we happen to win because, you know, for whatever reason, I'm playing a meta build at the time. But yeah, for the most part, when it comes to difficulty in Absolute, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. I'm going to go in the comments. Oh, also, by the way, this post had no upvotes, so don't really worry about this, this attitude, because I think a lot of people are concerned and also want to see changes. So I think ultimately this is something we're going to have to iron out. But the attitude where it's like Absolute should just get buffed, let's just stop that right now. I'm all for the hardest difficulty being hard, but then don't design the rest of the game around it. If they're worried about contested health restoration on Absolute, then have Absolute reduce how much you restore. Don't nerf range damage across the board because of one difficulty that most people probably don't even play. Yeah, that's... sheesh, man. Yeah, either way you look at it, they're definitely ignoring feedback from one part of the, the community. Here's the thing, there wasn't even that many people who are veterans who wanted Absolute to get buffed regardless. Like, I don't know. I don't think anyone was looking for Absolute to get buffed. Here's the thing, regardless of how they buff or, how they nerf things in Absolute, whatever, ultimately people are going to adjust. We're going to adapt. We're going to learn how to play around it. And it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange we keep getting punished for things. No, okay, I think this would be the first case of us getting punished for playing efficiently. To be completely honest, I think this would be the first case of it. There's really not an issue with ranged contested health regeneration. There really is not. There's not really an issue with how much health you get back for your ranged attacks. Like, ultimately, if you play it smart, you should be playing around fire rate, so your weapon fires faster, so you can refill more contested health. Oh, I guess fire rate contested health is OP. It's like, what? No, I'm just playing within your mechanics. Like, this is why, yeah, that point of that post, and then to also say, like, oh man, people are probably gonna be mad about this one. It's like, bro, are you saying that because you know? Or are you saying that because you're concerned with how you look at the game at the moment? like, are you covering for yourself for saying that? Like, we're only. I feel like people are only confused and kind of harshly criticizing the poll post is because it kind of felt like they were out of touch. It did feel like they were out of touch. Like, dude, you can't. Also, let's be honest. You can't really say, hey, you guys, you had one Prestige 3 level 12, you had one Prestige 2 level 15, and then you had a Prestige 4 level 25, and you guys beat Absolute. Absolute is way too easy because the lower levels were able to beat Absolute. It's like, dude, they were dead the entire time. They were dead okay, this is a scenario, right? They were dead the entire time, and the person who was Prestige 4 level 25 regularly plays True Solo. That has everything to say about the situation for Absolute at the moment. Absolute, for the average player, for maybe a little bit above average player, depends on your prestige and everything, and how much time you have. In that case, Absolute is still very challenging. Absolute 2.0 is very challenging, because what can happen is there can be a Neurothrop spawn in, there can be 2 Lictors, there can be a Ravener, and you can get comboed to death because you have to dodge around green orbs, but you get roll caught by a Ravener. And then a green orb hits you, and then you die. Wow, yeah, that's definitely not punishing enough. Insane take by the devs there. Okay, the more I think about it, the more that it's just kind of crazy. It's like, dude, for people who have all their classes Prestige 4 level 25, I just don't know if... I really do agree. I'm not too sure if balancing the game around that sort of player is like a really good idea at the moment. I think we also have those type of difficulties for those type of players already in the game. It just takes a lot longer to get to there because it's siege mode. A lot longer compared to just queuing up instantly into Absolute 2.0 compared to going through 15 waves of hard mode. Like, even in hard mode, wave 10, that's probably harder than Absolute 2.0 right now. It's just because of how many terminus you can see on the screen. And then not to mention, it still comes with Extremists. And not to mention, Absolute already gives you a version of that. Gives you a version. So, yeah, I think ultimately, I think balancing the game around Prestige 4, level 25 players, definitely a bad move. But ultimately, also, being overreactive to how people are refilling their contested health with ranged attacks, I felt like that was the goal of the game, right? Like, I really think the devs are kind of are trying to, like, divert the attention here a little bit. Like, for the most part, when it comes to contested health and range damage in this game, you can still get, it's not like you can just trade with a sniper all day. Like, dude, eventually you're gonna get murked. Not to mention, enraged majors, enraged shotgun majors probably can still one-shot you. So, like, I don't know. Look, if you get hit by an enraged major with armor, but you're like below half health, you're probably dead in absolute. This doesn't make any sense. This really does not make any sense. Why is the sub so against absolute players? We exist too. That's the whole point of having difficulties, to cater to every player. All right, that's a fair point. I do think that's a fair point. However, I think Absolute 2.0, as it's currently constructed, and again, we also had this issue before, considering the fact that Reliquary 2.0 exists, and Reliquary 2.0 is much harder than Inferno 2.0. Here's the thing. I still think we have difficulties in the game that can scale with you. I do find it weird that we keep pushing Absolute, in turn, keep pushing the balance of the game, when we have something that is supposed to be inheritedly punishing. Hard siege mode. I don't see a change in Absolute that won't be inheritedly frustrating. Like, for example, if they do just straight up nerf range damage contested health regeneration, that is going to affect every other difficulty. That is going to affect siege mode. You know what I mean? So I find it strange that the devs are kind of... Here's the thing. The devs are definitely overreacting a little bit to what people wanted out of melee contested health, I think. So hopefully they don't go through with any of these changes. Also, they did nerf Meltas and Plasma contested health before. They have done this. They've already did what they needed to do with problematic contested health regeneration. In hard siege mode, it does not matter how fast you can get your contested health back. It just keeps you in the fight. Eventually, there will be a moment where you lose all of that contested health because you're either stunned or you're just put into a bad position, you were grabbed. There's like, this is why it feels like the devs don't understand what they're talking about, man. It's because like they just ignore these situations that are already in the game. They not only did that, but they also ignored their own patches, their own adjustments. It's not like they mentioned Melta and Plasma nerfs in the poll post. They didn't mention that at all. And it's like, dude, that was really the only contested health regeneration that felt problematic, even though Plasmas take times to rev up. So it's like, regardless, when it comes to catering for absolute players, I feel like it's less about that and just more about the fact that it's like, absolute should just stay consistent, so we're not consistently moving the balance of the game, in turn making it stranger for siege mode, for hard siege mode, for other difficulties of the game. Like, when it comes to other difficulties of the game, I'm not even too concerned with that because relic weapons are going to be strong enough for the most part. I'm just concerned with players who are going to see this difficulty jump from lethal to absolute and get turned away from it. I've seen enough players recently in Absolute who I am still carrying through Absolute games, guys. Like, there is not this huge wave of players who are just playing Absolute 2.0 with a blindfold. There's like maybe 1% of the player base you can play through Absolute without dying. Like, maybe. Maybe between 10% and 1%, something like that. I'd say if you were actually to count, like, only Absolute-centered players and playing through the game, playing through the operation without dying, I feel like that's still like a 25%, maybe 40% range, something like that, right? And that's committed absolute players. So until that's like 100%, I really don't see a reason why Absolute 2.0 should be adjusted, or at the very least, I don't see a reason why people think should think Absolute 2.0 is too easy. Because guess what? If Absolute 2.0 is too easy, you have a next step. You still have hard siege mode. And unless the devs say, hey, hard siege mode is also too easy, I think these balance changes are very, very out of touch. 100%. Okay, I just want to reiterate, I don't want to put words in the devs' mouths. The devs did mention, obviously, that this is something we are going to have to test. This is not something they're just going to put in the game. However, sometimes I feel like the devs definitely look at these moments like, well, I do kind of want to nerf contested health ranged contested health regeneration, but I also don't want to do that because everyone's going to get mad. So let's kind of float this idea of like a melee contested health regeneration buff, but range damage definitely going to have to get nerfed because of reasons. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. I don't buy it at all. I think right now, for whatever reason, the devs want Absolute to be harder because they just want it to be harder. I think as far as balance is concerned, it feels fine. I do think I was able to true solo with Bulwark and Heavy, recently, and it felt good. It felt good. It felt difficult. Now, for Heavy specifically, I was using a fire rate enhanced Melta, and it felt good. Like, here's the thing. We pointed this out as well, by the way, because now it's starting to pop in my head. We pointed it out that, guess what? Increasing the health bars of the Terminus enemies probably isn't going to do much. We pointed that out. So now they have Terminus spawn with Extremis. Why do you think the devs are doing that? Well, because if you go for a parry on a Ravener, you still have a chance to get hit by the Zoanthrope or the Neurothrope Death Beam that is right around the corner. Has nothing to do with the health bars. It's just merely from the fact that you can get stun locked and die. So to nerf contested health kind of ignores why they even buffed Absolute to begin with. It's like, dude, contested health isn't even like that big of a factor when it comes into like your L's and your W's. If you die in Absolute, it's because you're getting stun locked or something like that. You know what I mean? Spore mines, Neurothrope death beams, maybe. It's normally a combination of things that you probably weren't able to get your contested health back on regardless. So I don't get it. I just don't get it. I think Absolute 2.0 is punishing for average Absolute players. I think for veteran Absolute players, we've grown accustomed to certain spawns and we're ready for them. However, in that case, L's from veterans, L's from new players, L's from average players, and Absolute 100% come from stun locks, from death beams, from hazards, everything stacking on top of each other to not allow us to even get contested health back to begin with. Contested health regeneration truly does not matter. It only matters for when we are fighting mobs and trash mobs and like extreme spawns here and there. Yes, we should be able to get our health back in certain situations. I feel like this is what the devs are like low-key kind of regretting their contested health situation, and then also didn't want to add health regeneration for executions because they also probably think that was too easy as well. So I don't know what to say. This is pretty much everything I had to say about it, though. But when it comes to the difficulty, the only thing that really annoys me here, it feels like the devs aren't really factoring in all of the elements for difficulty. It feels like they are looking at stats, and then they kind of gave us a what is it when you like disguise something? It's like the Iron Horse situation or whatever. It's like, yeah, they wanted to nerf contested health for ranged attacks, but they didn't want to do that outright without applying something that could have made us a little bit happy. So they go, hey, we'll buff ranged contested health regeneration, knowing that you're going to be in a worse position and you'll likely get more stun locks and you're probably going to get comboed off more often because you're going to play more aggressive within those melee ranges. If you just step back and get your contested health with range attacks, oh man, you can't get comboed off on a Ravener that way out of nowhere. A Ravener can't like just jump on your back because you're actually paying attention to things. Again, you will definitely get grabbed more often because you're going to get locked in more animations doing melee. And yeah, I feel like the devs kind of painted it up in a way to make us definitely think about, hey, do we need nerfed ranged contested health? Overall, they could buff melee contested health, and it won't move a needle with how hard or how easy Absolute 2.0 is going to be. You're still going to get stun locked. You're still going to get comboed off on. There's still going to be things like the Carnifex bugs. It's insane. It's insane. So, yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Again, I just want to kind of condense my viewpoint here. As far as how hard I think Absolute 2.0 is, it is definitely difficult content. It's not the most difficult content in the game, and it probably shouldn't be. Hard siege mode is the most difficult content in the game. You cannot suggest to me that ranged attacks in hard siege mode ranged health regeneration in hard siege mode should be nerfed. it's kind of weird treating Absolute 2.0 as this huge, like, I don't want to say gatekeepy, but like Absolute 2.0 right now is treated like some, I don't know, like some divine difficulty that we just need to get right. And to me, I just don't take it that seriously. I think hard siege mode is the divine difficulty, and it is right because it is punishing. So I don't know. All the difficulty, unless the devs straight up just want to spawn in hard siege mode level spawns for Absolute 2.0, the difficulty largely is going to stay the same. You're just going to have a lot more frustrated players playing it because they're losing out contested health more often. Because, dude, that was seriously such a out of touch suggestion, guys. I definitely took some time to think about it, but like ultimately, I don't really enjoy the idea of Absolute needing to be harder because I just don't think that tells the entire story. I don't think it needs to be harder. I think we already have harder content in the game. So if you want harder content in the game, just go play the hard siege mode. Oh, wait, you people don't do that because there's low levels in hard siege mode. Right. So how about the devs fix the things that are getting in the way of people enjoying hard siege mode instead of trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist because they don't like how they made contested health regeneration for ranged weapons. So silly, dude. All right, man. Okay, I'm feeling like I'm about to crash out. So I think I already crashed out this video. Let me know in the comments if I crashed out this video. But yeah, regardless, that's definitely my sloppy way of describing why I think this issue isn't a real issue. And it feels like the devs are kind of they're attempting to make us excited about ranged contested health, but nerfing they're getting us excited about melee contested health, but they want to nerf ranged contested health regardless. They want to do that. You know what I mean? Insane. Absolutely insane. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this, and thanks for watching.